Perfect. Hello.
Yeah, thank you.
Hola, buenas tardes a todos. Good
Hola, buenas
afternoon.
tardes. Buenas tardes.
Hola, this is Abelardo de la Peña Jr. I'm looking outside. It's a little cloudy. It's a little rainy. Depends where you're at, but it is very cold. So it's time for En Casa con la Plaza Cocina. As you know, every Monday we do En Casa con la Plaza Cocina, which is dedicated, of course, to the best cuisine in the world, Mexican cuisine. We throw in other Latino American cuisines every now and then, but you know, we do what we can to bring you the best in history, art, and culture from our homes directly to yours via these presentations, conversations, demonstrations, and performances. So if you're joining us on Zoom, which I know some of you are, you can use our comment section to let us know where you're viewing from. But also during the presentation, the demonstration, ask questions, make comments, use the Q&A, and we'll get them answered. I'm sure we will. Those of you on Facebook, welcome as well. Start a watch party of your own. I'll be doing that in a little while, but use the comments section to let us know where you're viewing from, and also ask questions, make comments. As you know, our sessions at En Casa are very interactive. Like if we're talking to each other, you know, across the table, but in this case, we're being very socially distant across cities, regions, even across the nation. So with that, I'd like to introduce our host for En Casa con la Plaza Cocina, our good friend, Jimena Martin, Director of Programming and Culinary Arts for La Plaza de Cultura y Artes. Welcome, Jimena.
Buenas tardes. Good to see you, Abelardo. How are you? What a perfect day. It's cold. It's windy. I have my cafecito ready. I just can't wait to talk to these guys. Absolutely delicious. Today we have Café, mobile coffee with Juan Carlos Espinoza and Joel Enrique Espinoza. It's a coffee bar tea that focuses on quality coffee and detailed-oriented brew methods. House coffee is brewed in a ceramic press, a French press, and they also offer pour-overs, cold brew, and espressos. Okay, it is with great pride that they work with seasonal, organic, fair weight, sustainable farmed coffee, roasted coffee, Café Estelar, which I went down to Milpa and bought myself some coffee. Very delicious. And the coffee is from Zapopan, Jalisco, Mexico. Hi guys, how are you?
Hello.
Very good. Good afternoon. Thank you for having us.
Absolutely.
Right, so, like we said, my name is Joel Espinoza. This is my brother, Juan Espinoza. And today we're going to be talking a little bit about our coffee program, Cafe, kind of how it started, what were the bases of it, and what led up to where we're at now. So, I'd like to start.
Yeah, so once again, thank you for your time. We really love talking about coffee. So the fact that both of you, we got to hear a little bit that you're already into coffee. I spoke with you earlier. I was so happy to hear that you love drinking a black cup of coffee. That's what we focus on here at our coffee and tea bar. I do want to talk about a little bit of my history and a little bit of my background. So I primarily am an educator. I've worked in education, and from education, just wanting to be informed, I ended up gravitating a lot towards how things are done, what's a natural process considered like, and it helped lead me to this world of cooking. I ended up working as a prep cook at a pizza location. At the same time, I ended up working at the first cafe that was a fair trade coffee cafe in Pasadena called Cafe Culture. And I ended up getting introduced to fair trade coffee a few years back, about 6 years ago. So that was kind of my first big introduction. And yeah, wanting to be a naturalist, working with organic coffees, wanting to work with coffees that were, no chemical treatments, sustainable farmings. It led me to it brought out my interest and it made me want to search deeper and get a little bit more into the intricacies of quality coffee and specialty. It ultimately led us to specialty coffee.
So what was your methods? How did you guys able to find this really delicious Café Estelar? I mean, there's a coffee from Chiapas, I mean, all over Mexico. How did you guys decide and work with this coffee, this cafetera?
Great question. Great question. So fortunately, I have a relationship that had been established with currently the importer exporter for the USA Café Stellar person. So the owner of El Café coffee bar, he ended up doing the right training. He ended up working with the roasters and the founders of Café Stellar, and he ended up doing the right training to carry Café Stellar and be the exclusive importer and exporter for Café Stellar into the US. So I used to curate for his old coffee shop when he had a coffee shop here in Boyle Heights where we are called Primera Taza. I used to curate an event called Art, Coffee, and Conversation that would bring together a bunch of independent artists from the neighborhood, student artists, and try to bring about artists with a message. So artists who were educators, artists who were politically inclined or trying to say something through their artwork. And we had it at a coffee place. So Art, Coffee, Conversation. We had this relationship. Fast forward a few years later, we're having a conversation kind of before the partnership with Milpa got launched. We had been doing the coffee bar since 2018. It was a project that initially kind of got started because I do volunteer for a arts organization too called the Sunday Jump, and it's a poetry cultural organization that focuses on the Filipino town community in Echo Park, and they always showcase independent vendors. We had this one show where we were going to showcase an independent vendor. Something happened to them before, and the night before, I got a call from the lead organizer. He asked me if I was willing to do. We have a different concept that we had created where we do grilled cheese together, and they had asked us to do this grilled cheese concept. But at the moment, it was too last minute. I told them we couldn't, but that we could do coffee. If they're interested, we have coffee available. So we set up for that. It was a big learning experience because it was kind of last minute, like I mentioned. And at the time, I just wanted to introduce what French press means, why French press is the way to go for me, and what was making our coffee and our French press a little different than other places doing their coffee. So right around that time, fortunately, I was talking to this gentleman, one of the lead brewers that we consider one of the lead brewers in LA, one of our coffee mentors, one of our comrades, Chuy Tovar from El Café. He gave me my first bag of Chiapas, and the flavor that we got on the Chiapas, how was it?
Very great. Very unlike any other coffee I've ever tried. So before Estelar, I knew about black cup of coffee. I knew that there were certain notes that you're getting from it, but a lot of the times there was a lot of over extraction from any other coffee shop that I had been getting coffee from. So it was just a great experience to be able to taste something that has like very like earth notes, very smooth. We don't think that it's a actual cup of black cup of coffee. What people think in their head, it's like very satisfying taste to it. So
Related to that, so I mean, a lot of he mentioned over extraction. So a lot of places, sometimes they're doing drip coffee. Drip is what we would consider an automatic machine, slowly dripping water over the coffee so that it extracts. That's perfectly fine for some people, but it is manual. What led me being like a naturalist and being into health, being very health conscious, considering the quality of water. Ultimately, one day I had tasted enough coffee that I could taste the plastic in the coffee. And I didn't want to taste the plastic in the coffee. I wanted the true taste of the coffee. So we eventually found these coffee presses right here, which we're really proud of. They're all ceramic and stainless steel, Stoneware. So these give us a very true taste of the coffee. They're not going to give us these fake weird tastes, these simulated plasticky tastes. So Cafe, we got started with our coffee presses. We got the connection to this coffee, and ultimately we had started to do some pop-ups for special events, a few art galleries, a few community markets. Ultimately, after a good while, after the first year, we ended up getting some residencies. So we got our first residency with Alivio Open Mic in the city of Bell, and beautiful community space, a lot of independent vendors. They give us a lot of opportunity. We got to train up right there a little bit. We got our second residency, which was at the art gallery, the galley at the Alley Gallery in Pomona, in downtown Pomona, which is an art space. We got our second residency there, so we got to practice, brew up a little bit more. Over the time, did some larger events, and ultimately got our last residency before our partnership. At the moment, we had a residency also with Art Bar in Venice, so it was really cool. For a bit, we were in different pockets of LA, getting to showcase a little bit of why we brew, how we brew, the quality of coffee, educate. And a lot of it was really fun because as the volume was fairly low, and manageable. So as someone's coming in for their cup of coffee, we're talking to them about French press. They're watching us do it in front of them. So it's really like an educational concept. It's like, we're gonna do every cup of coffee to our standard. We're gonna talk to you about it if you care to listen, or if you are a coffee lover like us, and we're gonna educate you a little bit on how coffee should be brewed and what's going on in other places. So that's a little bit of that. And then ultimately, we were blessed with this to find this opportunity. The pandemic affected us because all of our partnerships were affected. All of the pop-up events that we were going to do got affected. And ultimately, Daisy from Milpa Grill reached out. She had tried our coffee at an event in Boyle Heights. You know her, always in the community in Boyle Heights, supporting different independent vendors. She was at a vegan event that I was a part of. And fortunately, she tried that cup of coffee, must have had a pretty good experience. I think it was a brown cafe that she tried. So she tried this brown cafe, which is our raw honey, organic cinnamon, and sustainable coffee that we carry. Ultimately, it was beautiful. She checked in with me later, had told her about the updates, and she said, hey, well, I'm trying to work on my place becoming a multi-space. We're looking for, a takeover weekend. So Cafe got asked to do the first Milpa takeover, the first weekend takeover here at the kitchen. And instead of offering food, we offered excellent cups of coffee. And that's kind of how we got started with the whole concept. And it is a concept coffee because in reality, we're brewing everything by hand. There's no coffee that's being automated, nothing that's being done just like by a timer. Everything is pretty much quality control as much as we can. So very handcrafted type of coffee bar concept.
Thank you for that amazing introduction. Before we get started and you can showcase all the type of beans that you have, we have some folks saying hello from Harbor City. We
How
have,
cool.
Thank you for checking
yes.
in. Appreciate that. Thank you.
And
You.
and then I think it's Betty from New York, from Toronto, Canada.
Okay.
And then Jose Ramos says, saludos amigos desde University Hills.
Saludos, saludos. Thank you.
University Hills, hey, right by
Hey.
Cal State LA. Saludos.
And then the other $1 million question is the what brand is the French press and where can we
Ooh.
buy?
Oh,
Right,
great
yes,
question.
Great question. Great question.
So the French press is by a company called Chantel, and this is really cool. It's actually a woman-founded company.
Nice.
It was created, I think, to work with Stoneware and brewing and to provide quality kitchen equipment. So it's all about not having these chemicals that sometimes are found in different metals, different polishes. So this is a Stoneware coffee press. Right now, it used to be found at different in-store locations, but at the moment, I believe the only place to find this is on the website. So the website is going to be available at Chantel, and that's the
Okay.
company. I think it's Chantel Corp, like Chantel Corporation, Chantel Corp.
Okay.
And if you look it up, you'll find their website has a lot of really beautiful cooking products. Obviously, this is our favorite. We have a jumbo French press too, a bigger version of this when we really need it. Yeah, so thank you for asking about that. And then we did bring a selection of our favorite coffees right here that we are excited to talk about.
All right, let me start off by talking about my favorite. So my favorite's this natural process from Veracruz. It was actually the first natural that I had ever had the chance to try. I'm gonna give you guys a little zoom on it. Let me get that glare. And as this one, of course, it has this little ribbon because it was through Coffee Points was actually awarded for having over the 90 points that beautiful, excellent cup of coffee should have. Meaning that you're taking into consideration the taste, you're taking into consideration the aroma, the way the brew is gonna be, and the notes that you're gonna get as well. So all that taking into consideration, we finally get this point system, and this one was actually awarded like over 90 points. So it is an excellent cup of coffee, a coffee bean, which this is my favorite. You're getting a lot of juiciness from the coffee. Believe it or not, I had never tasted a coffee that I can honestly say it's very juicy, floral, fruit notes. You're getting a lot of these berries. So that was my favorite. I was introduced to a beautiful cup, and then
Yeah,
talking
and I'll
about the
talk
next
about
one.
this is one of my favorites. This is Pueblo Natural. So this one right here is the natural process of the Puebla. They're using raised African breads in the drying technique. So there's the wash process and the natural process. The natural process, they really do go above and beyond and go into a more old school technique of harvesting, drying. There's something called raised African beds, which is a very early, more older style of drying on raised beds that have a mesh net. The coffee cherries are drying in their shells, so in the fruit for as long as possible, sun dried, so that the seed ends up absorbing as much as the flavors, the notes, the mucilage, a little bit of the essential oils and the aromatics that are found on the fruit. So the natural process is one of my favorites, and that's something really special that we do that not everybody does. Is we carry wash process coffees and natural process coffees.
What are the ones you guys have there?
Okay, excellent. We're gonna run through these really quick before we start to brew. We have this one right here. I'll get into this in a moment. This is a really special one. There's this farmer named Enrique Lopez. Uh, he's represented by the little pig because it represents Oaxaca. And this farmer did two really special things. He's one of these farmers that does things a very old school way to his fashion. He only harvests during full moon. So he's all about harvesting during full moon because he knows plants carry this natural gravitation and work with light. So during the full moon, they search for the ripest cherries, and they only harvest the ripest cherries during a full moon. Connected to that, this farmer also led a really cool project with this bag right here. It's part of a project called the Women Project Innova Cafe, and this project recognizes that in Oaxaca, there is a large of indigenous communities that have been working with coffee for a long time. But in many cases nowadays, some of these communities aren't getting the recognition or able to sell the coffee for what they believe it should be sold at, what it should be valued. So he started this project that used only local population, encourage only indigenous women to work on this specific coffee project. So they hired only indigenous women. And aside from the roaster, only indigenous women were used to harvest and produce this coffee bag. So it's political coffee also because, and giving them the opportunity to learn about how to elevate their coffee so that we can get it to specialty level. And ultimately they can sell their coffee for what it's worth and what it should be valued at.
I would love to go get a bag of that to support.
Perfect. And then that's something special. The last one we're gonna talk about before we start brewing is this one right here is a really special bag too. It's by Samuel Ronson, the farmer. They ended up. Oh, I'm so sorry. This is from Pepe Arguello. I confused a different farmer, Pepe Arguello, and they ended up winning Cup of Excellence, which is the premier coffee competition in Mexico. The roaster got recognized for being the best roaster in Mexico, number one, during this time period, and in the world currently at number two. And something beautiful that they're doing here is these gentlemen are all about roasting for flavor instead of light, medium, dark. They roast for flavor and working with the farmers and according to the different elements that the farmers are indicating to them, their soils, their elevations, the climates, and how that's going to be affected during the roast. So with
One little
some of
quick
that in
question.
mind,
One little
yes,
quick question. We got people asking,
yeah.
do you guys sell the coffee at pop-up? So I know you guys are at Notebook Girl right now. So folks, if you guys want to get a delicious
Yes.
coffee and visit these gentlemen, please go down to Notebook Grill in Boyle Heights and we'll ask for more information at the end. But besides there at Notebook Grill, do you guys happen to sell the bags at other
So
pop-ups or
fortunately, right
farmers
now
market?
Thank you for asking. There's only 2 locations that you can get these bags at the moment. Maybe 3 locations. There's only 2 cafes. It's El Cafe. At the moment, we can order through them because that's our coffee dealer. But you can buy them here at Milpa Grill. So at Milpa, we carry bags that we bring in Monday or Tuesday.
Monday, Tuesday.
Yeah, Monday or Tuesday we get a fresh restock.
Tell them what's so special about getting these bags.
Sometimes we're having bags roasted Friday in Mexico and Jalisco, and they'll be getting to us Monday morning, Tuesday morning. So they are
so folks who are not
extremely
in
fresh.
so folks who are not in town, they can order these online directly from the cafe.
Yes, the website that we can visit would be elcafenow.com. El Cafe Now, and that's where you can order for anywhere in the U.S. that you need it shipped. If you're in LA, if you're local, if you want to take the trip, you could find us here at Meatball Grill, and we'll have the bags.
And get into something nice to eat as well.
Of course, it's something
Right?
to eat. There's a lot of delicious things to eat and a lot of delicious things to try on our coffee menu too.
Before we go forward, I just want to say Max Barrera is saying Mexico has the world's best coffee.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for saying
Yeah, thank you for agreeing. And I mean, we would definitely agree with those statements with all these bags right here too.
So please continue. So what are you guys going to make today for us?
So we're gonna get started. The first part to this is gonna be we're gonna work with our coffee press. I'm gonna go over briefly what standard coffee press is and our coffee press method, how we're using it here. One of the last things before we get started is we're really proud that this coffee is a fair wage coffee. I want to point that out because in the coffee world still, there's fair trade coffee and there's fair wage coffee, which goes a little bit above and beyond American fair trade coffee. It's sustainably farmed coffee, fair wage, organic, and all of the co-op farms right now are doing 0 carbon emissions. So there's no pollution involved when this coffee is being produced. So to us, that's just showing that it aligns really well with us, our politics, the fact that we want to be environmentally friendly, and the fact that when you go to a big corporation for coffee without knowing, sometimes people are adding to this lack of resources and opportunities to the farmers when you go fair wage coffee or someone that is using this coffee responsibly with their workers, you end up supporting the farmers and the roasters opposed to the other end of that spectrum. So I did want to mention that briefly before we get started brewing.
And I think that's what makes your coffee taste so much better. The
Thank
back,
you so much.
seriously, the back end story about to know that the coffee was made with love and processed and very thoughtful of you guys to present it. I think that's what makes it so good.
Perfect, perfect. So I'm gonna set up my brew station. If you want to talk about a few of the different notes that some of these coffees have, or help me with the camera angle. Okay. Help me with the camera angle, and we're gonna transition to the brew. So I'm gonna get that started.
I'm gonna try to make sure it's gonna stay sideways.
Alrighty. So we want to briefly mention that we offer here, different forms of extraction at Cafe Cafe. Our house standard is our coffee press. We also offer pour overs brewed to order, and we offer cold brew, which we're gonna get into in a moment. I'm gonna start with the coffee press. So first step I did is I opened up my coffee press. You could tell it's steaming. I poured in some hot water, and I'm gonna put a minute timer so we heat up our vessel. So the first step is gonna be making sure that we heat up our vessel. As my vessel is heating up, I'm gonna time it out. At about half of that minute, I'm gonna go ahead and grind my beans.
How big is that that ceramic container, your ceramic pot? How many cups are in there in case we go like I might go buy one. So how many cups?
Yeah, great question. Thank you for asking. So this is about 2 standard cups. It would be 2 10-ounce cups, maybe 2 8-ounce cups. Here in the US, I know people when we drink coffee, sometimes we drink a lot of coffee. So this would be like to produce two standard like 8 ounce or 10 ounce cups. I'm gonna do, as that's happening, I'm gonna weigh out my coffee. So if you can see here, I have my scales. I'm gonna tear my coffee scale. We use dot grammage too, so the milligram. And could you hook me up with the coffee? Which one is it? It's this one? Oh, cool. So we're gonna work with a geisha here.
So for that
Okay.
for that ceramic press, how many ounces of coffee should we put into it? And also, how can you define the grind? Super thin,
Excellent.
coarse?
Yeah, thank you for asking. So, in the coffee world, pretty much the way that we work with this is ratios, and I am gonna go over my grammage. My grammage is gonna work for my coffee press because it's the water content that I'm trying to yield out. But in standard coffee, you go 1 part water for 15 parts coffee, or 1 part water for 16 parts coffee, or 1 part water for 17 parts coffee. So we're actually right in the middle of 1 to 16, 1 to 17. We're actually brewing at 1 to 16.5 ratio because that's what we found works best with this coffee. I have my coffee that I weighed out for us using this vessel at the moment. I weighed out 37.5 grams. I'm gonna dump it into my coffee grinder over here and start this grind. So it is, you're gonna hear it in a moment. So right now we're grinding up the coffee. All right, coffee's been grinded. My vessel has been heating up this whole time we've been talking. And now we're gonna get started with the actual brew. So I'm gonna place my coffee press onto my scale. I'm gonna pour my coffee in. The coffee press should be nice and hot.
What kind of grinder did you guys use for
Good question. Maybe we'll do a zoom in on the grinder in a bit because help me out.
Oops.
Sorry about that. We're gonna zoom in on the grinder right now. Go for it.
Guys, just so everyone can see, we have the rim grinder. This one could be found at Best Buy. It's also all over Amazon. It's one of the fairly affordable, very portable, and very quiet.
Quiet,
Very
quick,
quiet grinder. So
very
that's
fast.
something that we like. Sometimes some grinders are actually very loud, and it causes you to not be able to talk to your customer or give some kind of like give me
Oh,
1 second.
All right, we're just adjusting the camera lens, but I'm gonna get started on the brewing. So right now in our coffee press, we had those 37 grams. I'm gonna tear it, and then my water is at 197 degrees. This has become my preferred water temperature when brewing coffee press because the grind is so coarse. So whenever you have a coarser grind, you're gonna need to brew a little hotter. Where you have a finer grind, you're gonna need to brew a little lower to not over extract and bring out too much bitters or too much acidity in the coffee. So we're at 197 degrees. I'm gonna go ahead and, for us, I'm gonna start my time and start brewing. Can you zoom in on this a little bit?
While you guys are pouring
So,
away, I'm sorry to interrupt. While you guys are pouring away,
no.
Daisy says, proud of my mijos. And Eli Dars says, love Cafe Cafe and Cafe Estelar. Thank you for the info you guys are giving us so far. So, amigo,
Oh no, thank you
Raciel
for
de
interrupting.
Lugo.
That's beautiful to hear. Yeah, thank you for sharing that with us. So right now what I did is this is what we've learned to do for ourselves now is we do an initial pre-soak. I did about 90 grams of water poured in at first. What's happening here is we're gonna see some little bubbles, a lot of steam coming out of our coffee grounds. we're degassing with this initial soak. So this initial soak is gonna help us make sure that we don't have too much acidity. This Puebla that we're working with, because the soil from this area is very rich in minerals, we end up having a lot of minerals, and it can lead to acidity if it's not properly degassed. So now you're seeing I'm doing my second pour, and for us, we're gonna get to 602 grams of water. But before I get to that, I'm gonna go half. So we're gonna get to 300 grams of water, let's say 301. So carefully pouring from the outside, working towards the center. Once I get to the center, I start to spiral out back into the outside. So I'm trying to hit as many coffee grounds as possible so that they extract. I went a gram or two over, but it's okay. So I ended up at 305 grams. We're gonna cover this and we're gonna start our time. So I started my timer. Standard coffee press, you do 1 minute. For this coffee that we're working with, we decided to do a 2-minute bloom. We did a lot of tasting and trialing, research and development with this. This led us to a smoother cup of coffee with a bolder body taste. In the beginning, this coffee is very dense. So because of the density and kind of the dryness that the coffee bean has, some coffees are very rich and moist because they're coming from climates that are very humid, have almost like subtropical microclimates. In Puebla, what I can tell from this coffee is there is a little bit more dryness, so it leads to a more earthy coffee, more like cacao notes, chocolate, hints of like sour, hints of acidity, a bright acidity sometimes. So these are the coffee profiles that we're able to get from Puebla, specifically because of its soil and its humidity. It's gonna account a lot for the flavors we're gonna experience in this coffee. So we have a few more seconds for our. Is there any questions at this moment?
We have some questions, but I think we're going to wait for the cold brew.
Okay, sounds good. Sounds good. Anything you want to mention right now? Feeling pretty good about the brew?
Yeah.
Yes. But yeah, y'all, thank you for joining us. This is what we do every day. And it's really fun that actually the first part of our day is usually me and my brother. We'll start our first coffee. And of course, we have to always taste it. So we always have to pour ourselves a little bit to try and see if we're happy with what we're working with. Was there any variables that got changed or that we need to account for? Just like anything else, or not just like anything else, just like high quality produce, this coffee fortunately is seasonal and it's real fruit. So we gotta remember that whenever we're producing real fruit, we always have to remember that there might be some small variances. So it's important to account for all that and taste everything. So now my next step is we're gonna have something like this, a little crust on the coffee press. I'm gonna go ahead and put my spoon in and we're gonna just give a gentle stir. This is gonna be called a bloom. So now the coffee is blooming where it's releasing its last of its gases and it actually forms a really beautiful little crema on there, kind of like an espresso shot. So this is a good sign. This means that a lot of the gases that are found in the coffee and formed during the roasting process, a lot of the carbon dioxide is being released out, which is perfect because we want the coffee flavor to be there. So now that I've done that, I'm gonna continue. Pass me the Bonavita. And we're gonna go ahead and pour this out until we get to our 602 grams, which is what we're brewing at the moment for this. And once again, the more you can spiral inward to outward, outward to inward, the more even of an extraction we're going to experience. And I'm very gentle right here, the last few grams, because you don't want to go over too much. The more you can get it perfect onto that perfect ratio we're looking for. There it is, 602 grams. For us, we do one final spin to incorporate all the coffee into the liquid, and we're capping it. Boom. Now we're gonna do a 5-minute brew for this coffee. Standard brew is usually about 4 minutes. But for this coffee, we ended up finding that a 5 minute brew is working excellent. Standard bloom is usually, like I said, 1 minute to 1 minute and a half. And standard brew time, the second portion after the bloom, is usually about 4 minutes. But for this coffee, we ended up finding that at 5 minutes, it's coming out really delicious, low acidity. We're getting hints of cacao. We're getting hints. We're getting a lot of earthiness without any sourness. And in the beginning, when we were first learning to brew this coffee and work with it, we were extracting a lot of sour notes. And some people love sour coffees, sour beers, sour brews. But for us, we're actually trying to brew everything as medium as we can, where we're going to experience the initial taste, the medium body, and the aftertaste, a little bit of like those hints at the end. So this was our favorite way to brew it. And yeah, that's pretty much we're just finishing the timing on this. And that right there is how we're currently brewing our coffee press, our French press, Cafe Coffee and Tea Bar. So this is our standard coffee. Whenever anyone just comes in and asks for a black cup of coffee, we have a few of these that we have brewed up at different parts of the day. It's brewed fresh as much as possible, and it will only sit for a maximum time span of usually 30 minutes before it sells out and we have to rebrew. Sometimes it's selling out quick. Within 10, 15 minutes, we're out, so we got to just keep brewing, and it becomes a constant fresh flow of fresh coffee being served up for house. And like I mentioned, when someone wants something a little bit more they want to pick their coffee bag, or we have this special coffee, that's when we go with our pour over process. That is a little bit more detailed, so maybe in the future we can get into this, but this one does require a little bit of more time and intricacies. So now that we're done with the coffee press, we're gonna get started with our vessels, which is our cold brew. So this is the jars that we use. This is one of our main jars that we use for our cold brew. It's all glass. There's something really special about brewing in all glass. I've worked, like I mentioned, for different cafes, and a lot of times because cold brew is being sold so much, it's steeped in high volume. So when we talk about a cold brew, we're putting double the ratio of our hot coffee into our vessel, and we're gonna let it steep for a minimum of 48 hours here. A lot of places like to do 24-hour cold brew, but what happens with 24-hour cold brew is you still get a lot of the bitters that are found in the coffee, where for us, like I said, we like to experience a little bit of everything in the coffee. So we pretty much always standardize 48-hour cold brew. Yes.
Question. I know I prefer my coffee black because I like to taste all the notes in my coffee. However, for those who like to sweeten their coffee, what would be your suggestions for that?
Excellent question. That's a perfect part that we didn't mention earlier is with our coffee menu, we actually offer no sugar. So we only offer natural sweeteners. Our favorite is raw honey that at the moment we're bringing in this raw honey from Jalisco, which is really delicious through one of our friends that has a farming friend connection. And we also use blue agave, organic blue agave. So we try to use only natural sweeteners. And in some cases, like for our teas, there's a tea that we only use orange to steep inside the tea so that there's no white sugar. White sugar actually contains a lot of harmful proteins that the human body has not been able to adapt yet and through evolution to digest. So when we take in large amounts of white sugar, there's a large chance that it could lead to inflammation because it can't break down, becoming free radicals in the body. So it definitely ties into, we believe, having a cup of coffee should be healthy, actually. A lot of our ancestors, a lot of our elders, they drank just black cups of coffee, natural from the Sierra, and they were as healthy as could be. The story changes when we're adding milk and white sugar to coffee. It actually now, to me, is becoming a little bit more dangerous. Yes?
Now, for me, my grandmother would make it in a media. It was like a cloth, like a cheesecloth, and with a handle, and it was a handle here, and then the thing for the cheesecloth, and then she pour her coffee grounds, the hot water, and then she'd taste it, and if it wasn't strong enough, she will double pour the coffee that was already brewed back into the media. It looked like a sock, and it was simple
Yes.
coffee.
you know, there's a funny story. Some people joke around like that. There's something called café de calcetín.
Yes.
And that actually what you're talking about is it was kind of silly because it looks funny, but it's essentially using a mesh so that you could strain the coffee that you would do in an olla, right? So it's like an updated version of café de olla. Here with these coffee presses, they have actually some really great meshing. So if you take a look at this, it's like a double to triple filter system, some different meshings. These are really amazing because they can break down completely. You can break this down completely so you could clean and sanitize every part of the vessel. Now what I'm doing is I'm gonna pour our coffee press coffee into one more coffee press because we like to double strain. This way we get all the grounds are captured into one vessel. And now we're ready to pour this cup of coffee. So let's take a look. You all smell it?
Oh, it's
So
gorgeous.
go ahead and take a whiff really quick. Take a little, get the aromatics in. Please with us. Alrighty. All right, y'all. Cheers.
Cheers.
Thank you so much. We're gonna take a little sip to see what's going on with this.
Oh yeah, really good. So with French press, one of the most beautiful things is a very great way to reduce acidity. So if you don't want to have any of that stomach issue later on after having your morning cup of coffee, that's one of the things that makes people not like coffee actually, is that once they drink it, sometimes the way it's roasted, the way it's processed, whether it's a natural process, a wash process. But this is the exact opposite with this brew method, and the way the coffee is too. So a lot of things take into account temperature, water. We're always using some very great filtered water, so to make sure you're not getting any minerals in that too. And one of the last things is we also take a big consideration of which coffee bean, what the coffee bean is asking for. So just as we explained this method, let's say we get to another coffee bag. If we're using another coffee bag, let's say this one's from Veracruz. Since the climate elevation is all different, we're gonna have to create another equation for this coffee as well. So not every coffee is brewed the same. We're trying to make sure every coffee is getting what it's asking for as well. Even for the Oaxaca one too.
Yeah, thank you for covering that. Well, that's beautiful. So now we're gonna transition, if you can. In a moment, I'm gonna ask you to bring the cold brews. We ended up batching our cold brews. Oh, question, yes.
Question before we get into the cold brews. Let's see. Lola was asking that she makes her own cold brew, but she wasn't sure if she brewed it correctly because when she brewed it, it was cloudy. Wasn't sure she got. Was it because it's incorrect grind? Do you have cold press cloudy coffee?
Cloudy. So cloudy isn't bad. I know what you're talking about with the cloudy. Can you bring the small batch, the special jar? So we're gonna bring a glass vessel that has some of our cold brew steeping so we could look at it. The grind that you want for cold brew is usually gonna be a coarser grind. So a coarser grind is gonna lead us to have a little bit more control in making sure that we can separate the coffee when we pour out the cold brew. But it's also gonna help make sure that if the coffee is too fine, since it's steeping, we want to make sure the coffee is the vessel is very sanitized, very clean. And if the coffee is too fine, it has a stronger chance of wanting to ferment, I would say, especially if you start to experiment like us, where we like to push cold brews to be more than just 24 hours, more than 48 hours. Yes?
Quick question. I mean, this is amazing coffee education, but what about those at home? How can we do this at home? Are there, we talked about grams. Can you maybe equate that into tablespoons?
Yes, I actually thank you for asking that, and I like that because so as you can see here, not everyone is gonna be ready to jump into like setting up a scale and having their timer. But if you have a French press, you can start like I did and go ahead and just edge guesstimate 7 to 8, 7 to 8 teaspoons. So from there you could start to, yeah, from there you could start to kind of guesstimate. That's how I started at first. I remember I was actually, before I had my scale, I would have to do 7.5, 8 teaspoons, 8.5. So what is this coffee asking for? So instead of using a scale at first, if you need to, go ahead and get your favorite spoon. And you know, there's a really old school one at home that I like to use. And you just use that same spoon to keep it consistent and always measure from that. And that first one might take a little trial and error, but once you get that boldness you like, you'll be able to brew at home very easy. Did that answer your question?
Yes, that's good. It's true
Okay,
about
perfect.
different brands, different grinds, and being consistent with your measurements. Now, the whole thing about the temperature of the water, I got to give that a try. Usually when the teapot blows and I know it's time to pour, but I had no idea that you had to involve temperature to get the correct coffee.
Yeah, so temperature is actually a huge factor. For example, when we brew French press, because of the coarseness that we're grinding at, we brew at 197. 195 to 197 will do. When you brew at a much finer or less, more medium coarse, we do like a fine to medium coarse with our pour overs. The pour over we like to brew anywhere between 194 to 191 in rare instances for coffees that are asking for it. Low setting, you're gonna get a lot of true flavor, very controlled acidity. And just because of the grind being that much finer, you do have to make sure you drop the temperature a little bit.
Okay, show us your cold brew.
Yeah, okay. So this right here is our small reserve batch. Normally, like I said, we cold brew in this larger vessel. This is our small reserve batch vessel. We wanted to do something special for the demo today. So we have our cold brew, our standard house cold brew we have, which is our 48-hour Puebla cold brew. That's the one that we're featuring right now as our standard cold brew, 48-hour Puebla. We did a special batch for this demo to talk about too, which is gonna be a 84-hour Puebla cold brew. So we doubled up our numbers. One of our coffee mentors that we talked about earlier, Chuito Var from El Café and Café Celar, he ended up surprising us once, and he got our favorite coffee from Guerrero. And the last little bit of the season, he saved for a special anniversary event, and he did an 84-hour cold brew. And it was one of the most delicious, smoothest, yet very strong cold brews I had ever tried. Extremely, because at that long steeping in the cold, all the caffeine has been extracted into the liquid. So that means that coffee was going to be very smooth, but very dangerous because it's also extremely caffeinated. So all you really needed was like a little glass over ice.
Nice. I've never had cold brew. I'm always like hot black coffee, but I never tried.
Okay, I look forward to sharing some with you. When the time is right, if you ever are curious with a cold brew, because yeah, if you're into black coffee, I think you'll like it. All right, so yeah, this is our glass jar of our reserve. As you can see here, a little bit, it's a little cloudy in the middle. A lot of the settlement is at the bottom, and it's very liquidy on top. So when we start our cold brew, we're gonna do one right now. We're gonna go ahead and first step is, can you measure our 60? With cold brew, you double up the ratio. So the ratio that you would normally do for your hot, for example, we mentioned for us, we're doing a 1 to 16.5 ratio, right in between 1 to 16, 1 to 17. So we're doing a 1 to 16.5 ratio. So we're going to double up on that. And for us, we end up needing about 60 grams of coffee. So I'm going to go ahead and grind the coffee we just weighed out right now. It's going to be a coarse grind. And we're going to begin the cold brew process right now. Jar, scale. I'm going to go ahead and tare my scale once again like we did earlier, except this time our vessel is completely cold. It was washed and sanitized before, which I want to stress is incredibly important for when we're working with a cold brew. You have to be very clean because it is almost working like with a kombucha. It's a cold tea in theory. It's almost like a cold coffee tea. All right, so I have my coffee grinded. I'm gonna dump it into the water. Bring the long spoon and sanitize. Okay, and the reason I'm using this scale is because it helps me make sure that I have the grammage all in. So I just double checked it. It says it right here, my 60 grams are in. So now instead of using the electric kettle I was using earlier that was hot, I filled up one of my kettles that we use for just cold water. So this has purified water. The water that you use is actually very important too. We never want to use tap water. We never want to use alkaline water because it will change. Because of the amount of minerals and substances in the water, it's going to change the flavor. So right here, we're using purified water. I'm going to go ahead and start my initial pour. I'm going to tare my scale, and we're going to go ahead and put in 630 grams of water for us. As I'm go ahead and pouring this in, if you can see, I'm trying to work similarly like I did to my pour over earlier. I'm hitting all the coffee as much as possible. But as I'm pouring in the water, so that it begins to have some action, it begins to have a reaction with the coffee, and it's going to begin to extract. In a lot of cold brews, a traditional cold brew recipe, we would do 70% water and then 30% ice. But because of the quality of water that we're using, we're going to do all water, and we're just going to put it into our fridge that has the extreme cold that we need for 48 hours. I got it right on the dot. It's right at 6:30. This is where I grind my next batch of coffee because we do medium-sized batches here, medium-sized batches. From here, we're getting very close to the end. So let's just talk about from here. What we would do is we have our spoon that has been sanitized. It's a longer mixing spoon, like a bar spoon. And after you do your cold brew ratio inside, you're going to go ahead and let it sit for a second. And for us here, we give it a gentle stir. So we're going to give it a little stir. After we give it a little stir, we're going to start to see a little bit of formation of some color on top. And we're going to see a little bit more. I'm going to do one more batch in here so we could see what I'm talking about. The way that the French press earlier, when I rose it up earlier and showed the coffee and there was a bunch of crema on top, which is that yellow golden color that we normally see on top of espresso. We're going to see a little bit of that over here in our cold brew in just a second. So yeah, as you can see, a lot of small elements that we like to account for. Fortunately, I got some background in cooking and line cooking, and I feel like it just helped me transfer a lot of that knowledge into coffee. So I like to account for as much as possible as we could. So I just dumped in all my coffee. I'm gonna go ahead and do my next grammage of water. So that was 60 grams of coffee that we did for this batch. And now I'm going to be a little bit more aggressive with the pour and pouring my 630 grams of water.
How long is this pot needs to sit before it's drinkable?
How long does it need to steep for?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so thank you for asking. So right here, we like to do 48 hours. A lot of places do 24 hours, which is okay. But what happens with the 24-hour is you do get a lot of these very bold, almost bitter notes from the coffee, opposed to getting to the full flavor and all these more subtle notes that we're really into. So now that everything's in, could you bring the sample coffees? I'm going to give it another stir. And we're gonna see a little bit more activity because I'm gonna be a little bit more aggressive with this stir. So I'm gonna give it a nice stir.
Okay.
I'm gonna let it sit for just a second, and it's gonna begin to form a little bit of crema on top. This is the coffee beginning to brew with the water. It's the coffee beginning to react with the water. So this is now where we would be able to saran wrap it. So let me grab a piece of saran wrap. And my brother helped me out a moment ago. We brought our coffees that we had brewed previously. So we have our house coffee that is from Puebla. Here it is in a little sample cup. We're gonna add ice and taste it in a moment. It's our Puebla 48-hour cold brew. Then we have our Puebla, which I did special for this demo, 84-hour cold brew from Puebla. So this sat for 84 hours. So now, if you can see this, there's beginning to have a little bit of that yellow color on top of the coffee. Is it noticeable?
Yes.
Okay, so this is a good sign because the coffee is actually beginning to degas. I would let it sit for us. I like to start a timer here, and I like to let it sit for after a good strong stir. I like to let it sit anywhere between 7 to 10 minutes, 15 minutes if we have time, if it's a slow day. After that stir, we're seeing this nice yellow color. I'm gonna be a little more aggressive with it, one last stir, and after that, I'm gonna go ahead and cover it. So we're gonna get our saran wrap, and we're gonna go ahead and cover it.
Gentlemen, I learned so much today about the process of coffee and temperatures and weights and measures. We're almost out of time.
Yeah.
So if you could be so kind to show us the final product of the cold
Yeah,
brew.
of course.
And last
Thank you.
question to you guys is, what would be the perfect accompaniment with coffee? Any treats or as is? What do you
I like
guys
that.
recommend with a perfect cold brew and a delicious cup of coffee? What would be
Okay.
ideal?
Yeah, so thank you for asking, and thank you for allowing us to go over this with you. Right now, there has been a very popular pairing here at Milpa Grill. There's two things that have become very popular to pair. We have our breakfast menu in the morning, which is provided by Machine, the other multi-space concept at the location. And our breakfast burritos, a lot of people come in, they get a breakfast burrito or breakfast taco, they have their cup of coffee, and boom, powerhouse, ready for the rest of the day. Superman, Superwoman, ready to go. In regards to pastries, we have a really good cornbread that Milpa Grill provides. So our cornbread pairs really well with the coffee in the morning sometime. And yeah, I wanted to mention those. So that's something that we pair here. Do you have anything favorite that you like to pair with your coffee?
Yeah, I always like to have a little cafecito with some kind of pan dulce, you know. That's one of the biggest things. We really specialize, or we like here at Cafe Cafe, we have a vegan cookies that we do offer by a great chef. And that's one of the greatest little pairings that we can have too. You know, if you want to have just a little snack with your morning cup of coffee, it tastes really beautiful that way.
We're really big on vegan options. So when possible, cookies by Delights in Every Bite, vegan cookies, and other pastries by our friend Fig Out Bakery. So especially when they provide vegan cookies or vegan pastries, we really appreciate them. So we're gonna just do a pour. I think for this we're gonna try the Nayarit, the 48-hour cold brew. Me and my brother are just gonna do a small tasting. Do we have a clear cup so that they can see?
While you gentlemen are pouring, can you tell us exactly where Milpa Grill is and what are your hours?
Yes, thank you so much. So Milpa Grill is located at 2633 East Cesar Chavez, real close to Cesar Chavez on Cesar Chavez and Mott Street, really close off the Soto exit, off the 10. And yeah, it's right here. There's a big sign that says Milpa Grill. We have a little outdoor patio that's very colorful. It got painted recently by one of my local friends who does art. And yeah, we're gonna do in the morning we have our breakfast menu from 8 a.m. to 2 p.m. breakfast and brunch, and then our lunch menu from Milpa begins at 11 a.m. for the rest of the day till we close at 6. And you can get cafecito from 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. Monday through Saturday. We close early on Sundays at 3 p.m.
What is your Instagram handle?
Our Instagram handle is going to be Cafe Mobile Coffee. And yeah, you could find us there, Cafe Mobile Coffee. So go
Gentlemen,
ahead, that's for my brother.
delicious. Aquí todavía tengo mi café.
Perfect.
Perfect.
So last
Bueno.
cheers to everyone. Thank you for
Cheers.
viewing. Thank you for being here with us, learning out a little bit about the coffee. It's such a beautiful process once you get to know it. And I feel like it even builds an appreciation for coffee. Coffee is seen every day, drink every day, but people don't really know that there could also be a whole science behind it, you know? So
We
a lot
just
of
got
different controlling
schooled.
elements.
Yeah, I just
Excellent.
learned so much. You know, I drink my black coffee, but I had no idea about the temperature and the quantities. And
Nice,
folks at
nice.
home, that's what I appreciate about this platform is that we learn and enjoy. And I hope everybody goes to Milpa Grill. They get their delicious coffee. I was there, I think, 2 weeks ago. I got my coffee from Origen, Puebla. Absolutely delicious.
Perfect.
Besides that, this machine has delicious food. Milpa Grill has her own menu on the plan there as well. So let's go and support our folks in
Yeah.
the Heights and drink some more delicious coffee with Cafe.
Thank you. Thank you. And we also have a special decaf provided by Café Estelar for people who don't want to caffeinate in the morning but still want that flavor. We do have a decaf available.
Bueno. Gentlemen, muchísimas gracias. I look forward to
Gracias
going
a
on the east
usted.
side to go to Milpa Grill to grab a bite and again to drink some of that delicious and to try your cold brew. I have never had
Nice.
cold brew because I'm a purist. I
we-
stick to my black coffee, but I will definitely go and visit. But again, muchísimas gracias. Éxitos. Adelante. Thank you so much
Thank
for
you for
sharing
having us. Thank you
with
for
us.
having us. We're more than welcome.
Yeah, we
More
look
than
forward.
happy.
We look forward to seeing you. Seeing you again. So thank you so much, and ask us about what coffees we have in store because we look forward to sharing them with you.
And if we weren't able to get to everyone's questions or answers, you're more than welcome to DM us on Instagram. We could talk a little bit more about the coffee brewing methods at home. Part of the reason my brother wanted to go over the cold brew is that people could have fun at home, you know, brewing if they're trying to, let's say, like quarantine or not trying to be out right now. You're more than welcome to brew a cup at home. That's going to be just as excellent as going out. So thank you guys for having us, honestly.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
All right.
De paso ahora le
Wait,
compañero Abelardo.
Well, thank you so much.
Perfect.
That was so fantastic. I learned so much. I you know, I have to have greater appreciation for cafe from now on, and for sure I'm going to visit the Milpa Grill to catch up with the both of you. It's great to see two brothers working together so well. You know, what a team.
Thank you. Thank you. I do want to give a thank you. I love that this is a family, a lot of family and community-based business, but I do want to give a shout out to some of my former baristas and brewers that work to help build up Cafe. Family too, family.
All right. That's what makes it so great. A great community venture, of course, with Days and Milpa Grill, and Machine was on just a couple of weeks ago also. So we're hitting it. We're hitting Boyle Heights hard. And we hope that all of you out there, when you have an opportunity to visit Milpa Grill, we put the address there. Of course, they're online as well, Instagram, or hook us up. Come to La Plaza LA. We always, if you didn't catch this entire episode session of En Casa con La Plaza Cocina, you could catch it on our Facebook, our website, and also YouTube at La Plaza LA. Catch this one, all the other La Plaza En Casa con La Plaza Cocina sessions that Jimena has so masterfully hosted. So thank you so much again, all of you out there. Too many to mention, but of course Lola from Lola's Kitchen, a great, always nice to have you with us. Chispa Hills, of course, here with us as well. Bobby Serrano, Helen Vargas, Max Pereira from Mexico, always coming in and enjoying the show.
Nice,
so
nice. Thank you
and
for
thanks
joining,
to our
everyone.
sponsors. Yeah, our sponsors, of course, Kaiser Permanente and PepsiCo, making En Casa con La Plaza happen 3 times a week. If you catch us this Wednesday and Friday at 7 o'clock, both nights, special presentations. La Plaza de Cultura y Artes works with the Eastside Arts Initiative in providing grants to people that were having tough times. So we They organize a COVID-19 relief grants, and we'll be presenting those projects both Friday and Saturday at Friday and Wednesday here at En Casa con la Plaza at 7 o'clock. Catch them both. The first one will be on the visual arts. The second one on Friday will be on performing arts with some great videos that were submitted as part of the grant application. And then next week, of course, we return with En Casa con la Plaza Cocina. And who do we have on hand?
We have Claire from Pocha LA.
Right. Here in Highland Park, just down the street from me. So I'm going to have to catch up with Milpa Grill, do it this Saturday, and enjoy some of your cafecito there. All
yeah,
right,
we'll look forward to seeing you. Thank you so much. And yeah, one more thing. Thank you for what you're doing for the arts, for the culture, and for supporting so many independent chefs and independent artisans during this time. It means the world to us.
All right. Well, thank you so much. And all of you out there, we'll see you next time here at En Casa con la Plaza. Thank you, Jimena. Thank you, hermanos.
Thank you,
and we'll
Jimena.
see you soon. Hasta la próxima.
Bye, guys.
Muchas gracias. Hasta luego.
Bye-bye.